Good morning, everybody. Now, something glorious happened yesterday when Keir Starmer went to visit a housing development in Buckinghamshire, and he thought he was just going to do a photo op with some media questions, some nice, easy, gentle media questions, fluffing him up because they like the idea of developing all over the Greenbelt and all over the countryside and pursuing all of this decarbonization agenda and whatever they call it. But some farmers, a group of farmers called Farmers to Action, found out that he was going to visit this construction site, and they went to pay him a visit as well, and went down there with about 40 tractors and were blasting their horns. And obviously, this was in protest at Keir Starmer's government's war on farms, and they are making war on farms and farming and essentially our food supply, because what they do to farms, what they do to agriculture is going to affect all of us. And of course, we know the dreadful things they're doing. They're putting inheritance tax on passing down farmland. So farms that have been in a family for generations, family farms, will no longer be able to be passed down through the generations, because every time it goes from father to son in the future, the government is going to take 20% of their land, because they're going to impose inheritance tax on the land, on the value of the land, which essentially means that the person who inherits a family farm will have to sell the farm, because you can't just the land is not sitting in a bank account in as a cash value that you can just pay. You're going to have to sell the farm and some of the buildings, some of the land, which will make it unviable. So they're actually deliberately destroying family farms. And that's not the only thing, because with all of the decarbonization agenda and whatever, they're actually trying to get rid of cows. They wanted cows to have this bovair in their diet, which is going to wreck their digestive systems, because they want to stop cows from naturally producing methane, which happens naturally when they digest food and flatulate. And they also want to rewild 30% of the countryside. They've ostensibly said they don't support the climate and nature bill that was going through Parliament, but they support the agenda. So a lot of farms are going to have to rewild a certain proportion of their land, which is going to make life impossible and unviable for farms and farmers to continue as they have been doing. So this fantastic group went and they gave Keir Starmer a lot of noise, and some of them got through into the area where he was speaking. Apparently he had loads of security around, but they got through, and then he ran away because he didn't want to face them. But later on, what was appalling was back in the safety of a nice television studio. He went on Sky News to do an interview. Obviously, they are quite favourable to a left-wing government there. And he basically gaslit everybody and saying, well, what would you rather have? Would you rather have inheritance tax on you, or would you rather have NHS waiting times costs, waiting lists cut? I mean, this is a complete false dichotomy, because putting inheritance tax on farmland, which they've done, or which it's going to be implemented in the next financial year that starts in April, that's going to raise maybe £1 to £1.5 billion a year. But they're spending £4.5 billion a year on keeping the Ukraine war going when we know it's coming to an end anyway, because President Trump is now talking to President Putin and they're making plans to end the war. So they're spaffing out 3 times as much money on military aid to Ukraine as they're going to get in from putting inheritance tax on farmers, which is going to bring in just a tiny little bit of money compared to the money that they're wasting. And they're wasting more money in so many other areas, migrant hotels, which comes out of the foreign aid budget. There's about $6 billion a year goes on migrant hotels and migrant welfare. the rest, the other half of the foreign aid budget goes to wind farms and things, and wind farms in Ethiopia and things like that, all sorts of nonsense. And we see in the United States at the moment, you've got DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, which is cutting all of this rubbish foreign aid, which is going on things which don't benefit anybody in America, obviously, with DOGE. But in the UK, we've got the Starmer regime, which is continuing to spaff out £6 or £7 billion a year on things which don't benefit this country. And then they're destroying farms to do that. I mean, if you want to get a £1.5 billion, just stop sending money to Ukraine. Stop sending money on foreign aid, which doesn't actually go to people who are really hungry and who need food and water. It goes to the projects of wealthy people who are just gouging money out for doing silly things. You could end HS2. You could stop subsidizing expensive, unreliable energy sources like wind and solar, and you would save much, much more, tens of billions of pounds if you did that. But no, they continue to waste money, but then they destroy the farming industry. They've cut winter fuel allowances for pensioners. They've attacked private schools by putting VAT on them, which is another area where lots of smaller schools, which actually do serve British people, are being, they're being forced to close because they can't afford the extra fees. So the gaslighting from Starmer after this event, where he was chased out by real people doing real things like farming, was off the charts. And it just shows how completely out of touch he is from everyone in the country outside his little political media bubble in central London, that he runs away from farmers and he goes to carry on his gaslighting in the safety of a media studio in central London. Well, the sooner he's gone, the better. I hope we don't have to wait another 4 years before the next general election. I hope that the Labour Party falls apart and we can have an election that would allow challenger parties like the Heritage Party to come in and restore our nation sooner rather than later. Thanks for listening, everyone. God bless you all.